Hey, what's going on, guys? We got a special guest here today. Actually his second time on the podcast. He came on in 2021. We got Mikey Taylor. He's president and managing principal of Commune Capital, a private equity real estate firm, social media personality, and Thousand Oaks City Council member. He's also a family man with his wife Jen and their four children. So, Mikey, I'm so excited to have you on for the second time. To kick it off, why are you so committed to California?
Oh, start with a banger. Okay, so first and foremost, California is my home. This is where I was born, raised, my family's here. There's elements of California that I just absolutely love. Now, I think why you asked it, we're going through a little bit of a challenge right now. There's a lot of people leaving, which is not, in our history, not something you normally see. And, I guess to bring it, maybe to the core of the issue, when I have things I care about and I'm starting to see those things threatened, I am not one to leave. It's just not in my DNA. I feel like I'm built for the trenches and uh I would rather stay here and do whatever I can to make sure California becomes again the greatest state in our nation versus accept the L, move somewhere else. And it's just not my personality type.
Yes, that is so good because it relates to everything in life. We sit here and majority of the time people are like, hop on AI, hop on this, hop on this. It's the new fad. And it's
Right.
like, I have my things I'm working on, and I'm going to work on them whether they're good or they're bad, which I think is so incredible. Where do you think people can cultivate that resiliency?
Man, you're going to figure it out sooner or later. You just want to figure it out sooner, right? For me, I learned really early on that the grass is never greener, right? Anytime you change up or do something new or make a decision to maybe take a job or pick something because you think it's better, you will quickly realize that everything has pros and cons, no matter what. So I don't know. I think if you put yourself in a position of not giving up and working through current struggles and current challenges, the experience you get to have on the other side, it's better than anything you could ever, I think, experience prior. Like when you put in the time and energy to make something good, the reward feels so much better on the other end. So uh, if you're going through trials, accept it. Know that you're going through a tough time. Use it as a refining fire. And who you become on the other side is a much stronger person. So, whether that's with your marriage, with a job, with a friendship, whatever it is, don't abandon or run from challenge. Those are truly the things that can make you great.
Yeah, and I think you're such a good example of that because if people don't know about you, you ran a campaign to become a Thousand Oaks council member. What was that like? Because most people sit there and they're like, government's got to do this, government's got to do this, and you're like, nope, we're pulling up our pants. And I remember seeing videos, pouring
Yeah.
rain, you're knocking doors, you're doing the thing, your kids are cheering you on. It's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah. So for me, I never really followed politics that closely. Like truth be told, I was uh I, I had a distaste in my mouth when it came to politics or government as a whole. It just seemed like they were never good at anything. And there's a frustrating element to it for me. I got to the point though where I was like, you know what? Like, this is where I live. I'm watching a lot of my friends leave. I don't know. I don't want to leave this place. Like, what can I do so then I don't have to be in the position of leaving? And, my wife and I felt like that was getting involved locally. And so I decided to run for city council and had no idea what that meant at all. I treated it as if it was a startup though, right? Like, okay,
Yeah.
if I'm going to run for city council, let's just pretend this is a business. If it were a business, I have to build a team. I have to get my name out there. I have to create a system. Okay, that's what we're going to do. So how I figured it was, okay, why am I running? What is the story I'm going to tell? And is that story potentially going to resonate with the audience, which happened to be the residents? And if so, I need to get it out to everyone. So what are my avenues of getting my name out there? And so I basically looked at the conventional way of doing that, which seemed like it was taking out ads in the local newspaper, doing flyers, doing meet and greets, knocking on doors. I felt like that's what all my competition was going to do. So I basically approached it this way. I'm going to do everything they're going to do, but more. And then I have to have something that is going to be the icing on the cake, the thing that's going to put me in a position of being able to do something that others aren't able to. And that was the social media component. So on top of, knocking on doors for 2 hours a day every single day, and then 4 to 5 hours a day on Saturdays and Sundays for 5 months, we also had a pretty built out Facebook and Instagram marketing campaign paired with organic kind of social that was a little bit more targeted. And none of the people running against me were even on social media, let alone using it the way we were. So that was basically it. How do I get people in to help me do this? We had about a 45-person team,
Oh,
and we just
wow.
went after it.
Yeah, and it's so good to hear that you thought about the plan, but then it wasn't just a plan, you took action. Because,
Right.
guys, he's saying he's doing 2 hours a day, 4 to 5 hours on the weekends. Mikey's not just sitting here with his legs up. Like, he's got businesses to run, he's got things going on. So I just want to paint that picture for anyone that wants to take on a new opportunity, that it's going to require those extra hours. It's going to
Right.
require the sacrifice and going above and beyond and that agreement. So how do you think about that with your family and bringing them in? Because it's not always easy to pair both together, and your family's in all of the councilman pictures.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, it was both. Like, I had to talk to my wife about what this was going to mean, and I also talked to my business partners because, with the 2 hours a day during the week and over the weekend, I still have a business to run. So that had to be, mixed into my current obligations. So I spoke to all my partners about what I wanted to do. I wanted to basically have their blessing. My wife was the big one. I gave my wife the trump card. I told her if there's any bit about this that she wants to basically say no, she can say no, and I will not argue with it at all. It was okay, I will support it. And she was the one that went, you know what? This is, probably the worst timing as far as, the family goes. Why I say that, she was pregnant. We were about to have our fourth child that was going to be in the middle of the campaign. But she kind of went, you know what, though? Like, I think you would be phenomenal at this. I think the city needs this. And, if God's opening this door, like, I'm not gonna get in the way of that. Like, I'll support you in it. And then I was like, okay, crap. Like, if she's gonna say yes, okay, I've got to fully go for this. And then we turned it on, and it was, probably the most exhausting 6 months of my entire life. It was one of the wildest things I've ever done. But looking back, I am so glad I did it. The experience that myself and the team got was it was really cool and really it was rewarding at the end of the day.
Yeah, and that's what I find. Like a few years back, I ran the New York City Marathon. And whenever we put ourselves up to a massive challenge that we're not sure we can complete, but we give it our best effort, I feel like that's where the real gold is, where you feel confident about what you're doing and comfortable about what you're doing, because it can be so challenging sometimes finding those new challenges. So for you, Mikey, people might not know, but professional skateboarder pivots. How do you think about these transition times in your life? Because you just seem to keep adding more things to the resume and doing things where people look at you and you're like, does this guy have 25 different jobs? Is he
Yeah.
40-person company himself? Like, you're
Yeah,
making it happen. You respond back to everyone. I'm like, this guy's so impressive. How's he do it?
that's a good question. So I would say when the first transition I made was actually from being a pro skateboarder into starting my first business that was in the craft beer industry. That was the first transition I had to make. But at that time, I didn't have any business experience. Like that was when myself and my partners were figuring it out. And I don't know if it was because it was our first business or because it was beer. I didn't feel like I had to truly transition my identity. It felt
Yeah.
like I was just stepping into doing something I didn't know how to do and was kind of using it as a, I don't know, a learning moment or a learning experience. And then in that business, we basically started it. We had a lot of success with it. We ended up selling it to Molson Coors. And then after that is when I started my current business, Commune Capital. But that was the transition from craft beer into private equity was, you know, maybe extra hard because I was no longer a pro skateboarder at the same time. Like when we started the brewery, I was still technically a pro skateboarder. So I didn't have to go through like what my main identity
Yeah.
was after and starting Commune. I felt like I had to figure out who the new me was because I was also going to be using my social media to help me promote my new business, which was investing that had nothing to do with skateboarding and had nothing to do with beer. And it was also so like taboo in a sense that like
Yeah.
skateboarders aren't supposed to talk about money or investing
Yeah.
that that was a tough one for me. Like the transition into this business in 2017 took a long time. It was probably a year and a half of transition. From that point on, I kind of have learned how to do this now. I've learned how to reinvent myself. I've learned how to take on new things. And that process, the hardest time was going from St. Archer to Commune. Now it's a little bit more plug and play, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Because in reality, and most people don't realize this, but it's the same experience over and over again because you're just re-identifying who you are. And
Yeah,
if
there's
you
a
guys, yeah,
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 look, there's a system to it. Like at
yeah,
the end of the day, business is business, right? It's like you have to get your name out there, you have to have a product and service to sell, you have to have people buy whatever you're selling, and then you have to have a foundation that can you can scale upon. At the end of the day, that's business, right? Now, certain industries might operate different than others, and so you might have to spend time learning that industry, what the you know, is in an industry with a core? Are there things that are going to kill you off the bat? Who are the players? How do you bring them in? But at the end of the day, business is business. I would say the thing that really, I think, hinders people from stepping out into new things is when you're successful in one space, you put yourself at a certain level, right? So let's say me going from St. Archer, selling St. Archer and being a successful pro skateboarder. Let's say I was already at level 10, like doors open when I went places, right? Well, when you go into creating the next business, it's hard for you to go, okay, I'm not at level 10, I'm back to level 1, right? It's hard to humble yourself and go through the beginning stages again when you feel like you've already achieved success and people should just, do these things for you. You got to be able to humble yourself. And I think that's the hardest thing for people to get past. That mixed with when you build business successfully and you start truly delegating, you're put in a position where like you're just doing what you're great at. And the things that you aren't good at, you got people covering you for. When you're starting a new business, you're back into startup mode and you're back into wearing multiple hats and it's exhausting. And so I think it's hard for people that have already experienced success to go back into the trenches to do it again.
yeah, yeah. So good. Because what Mikey's getting at is there's a couple points here. Like, so when you're in a startup, there's always like three people in a company. There's the owner, the manager, and the employee. The funny thing is when it's a startup of one or five people and everyone's a quote unquote owner, they're also a manager and they're also an employee. So you're doing all the hats. And when that happens, it can become very overwhelming and people can become irritable. So how do you find that ability to push through? Because there's probably been times when you're like, like if you guys also, I want to know if you guys aren't following him on social media platforms, he is a must-have for any financial education because I was going through this before and they're just entertaining clips. But
Thank you. I appreciate
how do you
that.
keep pushing through? The
Um,
adversity.
well, I, I learned something about myself, and it happened after we sold the brewery, that I really enjoy the journey. I like setting a goal and I like everything it takes to get to the goal. But when I hit the goal, the feeling of success is very short-lived for me. Like when we sold St. Archer, we had a massive exit. And I remember one night it was like, we did it. This was the coolest thing. And then the next morning I woke up and went, okay, now what? Right. And so I've just found that I really have fun when I set goals and then I have to figure out how to get to that goal. That's just what I enjoy. And so setting the right goal, I think, is probably the hard part, actually, because you have to set a goal that has some type of purpose driven to it that will push you through the times in which it sucks, right? Like, no matter what, you're going to be doing things that you don't want to do. And you're going to be doing things that are not fun. You're going to be tired and you're going to be exhausted. So, what you're really asking is what motivates you through those tough times? To me, it's the end goal, it's the purpose, it's the why are you doing this? And then that makes the, you know, moments where you're just grinding it out not so bad because there's something bigger driving you forward. Sometimes setting that goal is actually the hardest part about it, though.
Yes, because the goal is the directional awareness that's going to lead you to where you're going.
Right.
And I think the ability that you have pairing the social media, talking about financial literacy, with your real estate, because if you guys haven't, like, Mikey's real estate is a very interesting approach. So, can you dive into what Commune's doing?
Yeah. So our firm, if you don't know what a private equity real estate firm is or means, basically we go out and we raise money from investors, and those investors want to invest in real estate, but they don't want to do all the work. They don't want to go out and find a project and entitle it and manage construction. That's not what they want. They just want money invested into real estate so that they can, maybe diversify their portfolio. They can get some, tax efficiency in it, et cetera. So that's at the core what our business is. We raise money from investors, we deploy that into real estate. The real estate that we do, in my perspective, is very unique, and I'm really excited about it. We focus on two asset classes, storage and multifamily. On the storage side, we convert old distressed retail into storage. So we'll buy Bed Bath and Beyonds, Walmarts, Kmarts that are vacant, and we'll come in, we'll keep the shell, scrape the inside, and we'll fill it with, anywhere from 1,000 to almost 1,200 storage units. On the multifamily side, we are hyper focused on California, like really, really hyper focused on it. And we're picking the cities that are the most undersupplied as it pertains to residential. We're finding assets that are, hopefully distressed. We're scraping them, and then we're building apartments. So that's what we're doing. We're at the point now where we have almost 550 investors,
Oh,
and we're
wow.
managing I think total about $250 million of commercial real estate.
That's incredible.
It's
And
been cool. It's been a cool journey for sure.
yeah, and you said you started that in 2017.
I started working on the business plan in 2017, and then we officially got it open and an asset in it in 2018.
So that's 5 years. That just shows you how much progress can be made in a very short period of time, and your whole identity can change. And I want to share that just for the audience to realize that if you're going after some sort of dream or there's something you want to accomplish, it's just getting started, and it's just getting into that.
That's right.
Where did you figure out about this whole malls, Bed Bath and Beyond as an opportunity for storage units? Because I think everyone in America can see that, like, obviously COVID was a big advocate of that, but how did you figure out this opportunity?
Okay, so it started. I mean, maybe if we're going really macro, all of us saw what happened after the financial crisis, like 2008, 2009. Like retail just got pummeled, right? And simultaneously, you started seeing this trend of companies starting to sell things online, right? You saw the rise of Amazon, and maybe 2020 it was it became obvious to like the masses. But if you were younger, a millennial, 2010, 2011, you saw the trend, right? We were already
Yeah.
using social media. When they started selling product direct, it was like, okay, this is where we're headed. And if
Yeah.
that's the future, then what's going to happen with all this old retail, right?
Yeah.
The 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 hardest part about it though is, and you know, I really learned this now being on city council. Cities don't like storage so much. And, you know, to add to that, they don't like the idea of letting, you know, 100,000 square foot Bed Bath and Beyond go to storage, right? They have the hopes that like a new operator is going to come in and fulfill that space. And so it's not an easy niche to do. It's actually very difficult. It's easy to find the assets. It's hard to find a city to allow you to do it.
Interesting. So it all comes down to the approvals of allowing you to change this property into a storage
Yep.
facility. That's fascinating. I
Yeah.
did.
So we've done
Yeah.
really well with it, but it's hard to do a lot of projects at once. Like we have 2 projects under contract right now that we're gearing up to close on. Those will probably be the only 2 projects we do this year. But then on the
Okay.
multifamily side, it's like it's a lot of them. You know, it's just
Yeah,
multifamily is an asset class that's just more in need right now.
definitely. And I would be remiss. You have a ton of education and a ton of knowledge. Where do you think real estate is going in 2024, especially with many millennials, people 20s, 30s, 40s, who are like, I want to buy my first property, but I just don't know how. We're seeing rates drop, but what do you think about that, and how would you recommend to that person?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the in a lot of states, the real estate market is broken right now, truth be told. You know, there's a lot of states that did a very bad job building new homes after the financial crisis just to keep up with the population growth. And so there's a lot of markets that are so undersupplied that you saw the Fed increase rates at a crazy rate, but yet it didn't change the price of homes very much. That is not normal. Like what we should have seen when the Fed did that, we should have seen the price of real estate absolutely plummet. The only reason you didn't in a lot of markets is because they are undersupplied. So what that means, there's going to be 2 different approaches, right? Either the government's going to come in and try to solve the problem through subsidies, or they'll solve the problem by incentivizing people to build more. You'll probably see some states do the former and some states do the latter. What it means for the youth, man, it's hard. You know, one of the government, you know, here's maybe where this heads on the government side. You're seeing a bill right now be run through Congress that has the potential to make it illegal for hedge funds to buy single family real estate. And so they'll no longer be able to buy in the future. It's like Black Rocks of the world. And then if they do own, they'll have to sell off about 10% of their portfolio every year for 10 years.
Oh,
Now,
wow.
do I think there should be regulation around that? I do, actually. Like, I think homes are meant for individuals to own. I would say where I'm concerned, anytime the government gets involved and they create regulation, what usually happens is there's unintended consequences, and or they make the experience worse for us and price typically goes up. So hopefully they find the right balance to do it. In California, I think that you're going to see probably more programs spun up where you don't need anything down to buy a house.
Yeah.
There'll be programs where, you know, a down payment will maybe come from the government. And then when you sell the house, you'll have to pay them back plus some, and then you'll be able to participate in, you know, a percentage of the appreciation, probably something like that. I think, you know, from the entrepreneurial side, if this thing goes like full free market, you're going to find new alternatives to build real estate cheaper, right? Like right
Okay.
now, the price of real estate is also dependent on the cost of construction, and it's just expensive to build. So, you know, right now you're seeing something like China just launched, they built, what was it? A 200 unit apartment in 48 hours, something crazy. So
Oh,
they're working on basically buildable apartments where the whole thing's manufactured and then it's just like Legos, boop, 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 and then it's spun up. You'll probably see stuff like that being built out. Or you'll just start seeing the rise of tiny homes.
Absolutely. I mean, because when you look at it, it's literally, and I'm 28, so I start pushing it together. I have friends who bought a home, or I have friends who didn't buy a home.
Right.
If you bought a home, you're like, "Woo, this is great." Or if you bought it a little too late, it's like, this is stressful,
Right.
especially in Florida where the insurance is coming out of nowhere. So it's a very interesting place we're in. And what do you recommend financially? Just not in regard to real estate, but just having your finances in order. Because whenever anyone's a high income earner, I just tell them, keep it saved. Like, it's good to have money on the sidelines. You will find opportunities. That doesn't mean put it all in on the real estate. I don't know. That was just my thought.
Yeah. So I would say before I answer that question, one thing I'll say about homes or buying a home, look, there's a lot of areas out there where it's not crazy expensive to buy. Then there's other markets where it is. California, Florida, New York, it's expensive. There are a lot of markets out there though where you could still buy a house for $200,000. So this is
Yes.
going to be regional or region specific. Now, what do I tell high income earners? I mean, the first thing I tell them, and probably the most common trend you see is high income earners spend a lot of money, right? As you make more, you spend more. It's human behavior. And so what I first work on them with is if you're going to spend everything you're going to make, you're not benefiting in any of the upside of really earning this money. All you're doing is spending it. So I really encourage them to spend a fraction of what they're making. You start there. Two, as far as saving the money, I'm very, uh, how would you say this? My blueprint is more have a percentage for savings that's meant
Yes.
for an emergency fund. And then for me, everything past that, I want invested. I personally don't like sitting on a ton of cash. I always want to get money out there invested because I want my money to grow and I want tax efficiency. That's the other thing. Like,
Yeah.
when you start investing in things like real estate or, there's opportunities in the energy sector, et cetera, you are able to capture, for real estate's depreciation loss, it can help you on your taxable income. So I like that as well. Um, what you invest in, that's going to be specific on the individual, right? Like as you get older, you're usually leaning more towards cash flow. As you're younger, you're usually leaning towards wealth build. So it's going to depend on the person.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's funny because I was watching your clips and just talking to you now. Have you ever thought about like we got Dave Ramsey's steps, obviously, the baby steps. Have we thought about Mikey's baby steps?
You know what? The reason I haven't is my strategy is actually not for the majority, right? Like there's a if you're trying to go super macro and like really kind of give like value to everyone listening, it's actually different than the strategy I took. And so I just want to be mindful that I'm not, building out these plans or these steps and they weren't actually the steps I used, right? Like
That's
my
interesting.
path is more built for an entrepreneur, truthfully. Like
Yeah.
I put the majority of my risk in the business I'm building. And if you look at my portfolio, it's very, very off-weighted, right? Like I am so heavy in real estate and then I'm insanely heavy in startups and then I sit on cash. That's not the normal portfolio, right? Like, and so I don't know. I'm just not sure. I'd have to think about that one.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the honesty. And because what I found is with a lot of people, they'll just answer questions that are brought to them. So the
Mm,
ability to have a free thinking mind, I think, is awesome. So how did you establish that? Because it's tough when you're around a lot of experts because you want to just comply with them and be like, yes, that makes sense. But you're jumping into so many different arenas. How do you think for yourself, but also listen to the, like, you know what I'm talking about? That
I
challenge?
do. I do. I totally do. Um, it's harder in the beginning. Like when I was young, if you took me back to like 19 to 28, right? I had one person I was listening to, one person in my life, listening to him, trusting him, asking him questions, and potentially challenging him at times, but there was only one person. As I got older, and now I'm in a place where I'm constantly trying to bring experts into my world in different fields, right? What I found is, and I don't know why, I'm not saying this to brag, this is just what I found. Uh, I was given some type of gift or some type of skill to be able to really discern information. Don't know why, but when I'm listening to people, I've always had this ability to take out of what they're saying the truth and disregard the things that I don't agree with, not even having a framework of why I disagree. And what I found 9 times out of 10, I'm usually on the target. Doesn't mean I always am. There's times where I make mistakes just like everyone else, but I don't know. That's one thing that I didn't really learn. It was just there for some reason.
Yeah. No,
I don't
but
mean
I
to say
think,
that egotistical. It just that's what I found.
but that's a good point to bring up to anyone listening. The fact that if you're listening to a mentor, they might be a mentor in business. That doesn't mean they're a mentor in relationships. Where
Right.
you could basically take information in different areas where they are experts and you can learn from them. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, that's right. So maybe if I'm like trying to like really break it down and like, explain what I'm saying, you know how when you're listening to somebody and there's certain things they say, then you're just like, oh, I like that. Like that
Yeah.
resonates. And then there's other things where you're just like, nah, nah, nah.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard to tell why you're resonating with something, right? Was it just the way they said it, etc. What I found is the things that I resonate with happen to be like the things that are actually accurate, and the things that I don't end up kind of I don't really need anyway. I don't know why that's the case, but it's just been the case. So I've just found that the people in my life that I rely on, I'm taking some of the stuff they say and using it in maybe my thought or building out ideas that I'm holding to potentially execute on. And the things they don't, it's just all right, cool, next.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would say from my outside perspective of seeing you, I think it's that you're very in touch with reality and you know kind of what works just in so many different areas because you've experienced it. Even skateboarding, you sit there and you go, that person's got what it takes, or they might not. In real
Right.
estate, they got what it takes. Startup, they got what it like. You've just experienced so much, and it's tough because it's not quantifiable. There's
Right.
never really a way to go, oh my God, you're a very experienced soul there. It's like, dude,
Right.
you're a
Right.
certain
That's
age, and they're
good.
like, okay, that's your age.
Yeah, it's good. It's really good.
But Mikey, you're incredible. Where can people reach you, find out about you, learn about Commune Capital?
Yeah, so whatever platform you enjoy, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, you just search my name, Mikey Taylor. I'm the first one to come up, thankfully. And then if you're interested in our company, you can either go to any of the platforms and put in Commune Capital, or you can go to our website, communecapital.com, and look around at, what we've done, some of the current offerings we have, etc.
Awesome, awesome. I really appreciate you.
Heck yeah, thank you.